All right, ladies and gentlemen, if you are doing this in color pencil, you should be working on the gray paper over here. We created a 2" by 2" grid. That was in my last video. And what we're doing right now is we're going to get started on the color pencil part. Again, we're going to begin this like we did the last drawing, the ones of the apples or the tomato for that matter. We're going to start with the black and white first, and then we're going to layer color on top of it. So what I want to do is, one, I want to make sure my pencil lines are pretty light. I want them to sort of disappear into the background. I also want to get rid of my grid. Now's a good time to get rid of my grid where it really won't bother the rest of my picture. And just like I have in the past, I'm going to start with white first. Always start with white. It's always easier later on. You can always make things darker. You can always add value to them. But we want to start with white. Because again, brightness in this case, especially working on a neutral tone paper, is a good, as far as I'm concerned, is a best practice. So we're going to work on the bright areas first. You can start anywhere you want. I know with the portrait in the past, I sort of work from the top down just so I don't drag my hand over work that I've already done. But in this case, what I'm going to do is I'm going to just work from the center out and work to my edges. Remember that you're using some of the gray of the paper as your neutral tone. So whatever color your paper happened to be, just realize that you're going to use some of that gray tone from the paper, that neutral tone from the paper, to sort of get the effect of the sort of neutral color. So remember to work lightly. I'm going to do a little bit of highlight right here because it's the brightest part of this particular picture. I'm going to look for really inside the eye. I don't see much in terms of usages for white. I could see maybe in and around the pupil there's a little bit of like a corona, I guess. It's just sort of like a during an eclipse you have that sort of bright little edge that sort of comes out around the pupil in this particular picture. So I'm going to add that stuff to it. Again, that neutral gray that is most of the in-between parts here, I'm going to leave that just the color of the paper. And then again, do a little bit of the texture over here. You don't want to work with a really heavy hand. I'll just kind of pick up some of the other spots where I see a little bit more lightness in this particular eye. And again, less is more. You can always come back and add more to it. And then on this side, it is significantly darker than it is on the opposite side. So you're going to see that I'm going to use a really light touch here. I'm going to use most of what I see in the darkness of the paper just to kind of heighten or bring out a little bit of that lightness that you see on that side. So that would be the extent of the inside part of the eye that I would do with white. And then I would come in with my black. And then with the black, the thing I'm going to keep in mind is it's a little bit different than working digitally. You don't want to mix black and white. So wherever you have white, don't try to mix black in over top of it. This is a little unique spot because it's a little bit of a highlight inside the iris, but I'm going to start, with that dark center over here. I'm not going to make it necessarily pitch black just to start with, but I am going to make it pretty dark for the purposes of my picture. This is the only place I'm really going to go in and go ahead and do that. And then I'm going to take a look in and around the eye and just see, like, near the edge of my sort of iris, the color part of the eye, you're going to see that there is a little bit of darkness. So I'm going to try to pick up a little bit of that with my black colored pencil. And remember, you can always come back later on and make things darker. This is really just a little bit as my base coat. And just like I said before, really not going to come back again later on with black on this picture, this particular picture. It's going to be done all with the basic, the colors. And again, if we haven't discussed it already, this is going to be sort of your version of your eye is going to be the Incredible Hulk, because we're going to be working with greens because that's all we got. So just give me another second here. I'm going to add a little bit more tone. And you notice I'm adding the darkness around the edges of the eye, but I'm not overlapping the black and the white. I'm leaving some gray area in between them. So, again, that's just like we did with the apple. Nothing changes. You don't want to mix the black and the white. So keep them separate. And again, I can't stress this enough. Try to work with a light touch. The lighter the better. You'll find in fixing things later on, it's easier. You'll find also in making things look more realistic, a lighter touch is ultimately going to kind of shine through a little bit better. So what I'm doing here is just a little bit more black. And again, everybody's picture is going to be a little bit different. You know, if you have lighter colored eyes, there'll be a lot of stuff to do here, but if you have dark colored eyes, you may find that really all you're doing is kind of making that pretty dark. But I would not go, even in the darkest part, I wouldn't go so dark that I can't see the texture of the paper still. I'm going to look to the interior part of the eye, right where the eyelid touches here. I feel like I got a little bit of shading to do. And again, I'm not letting the white and the black mix. I sort of have it faded out on the edges over here, faded out all the way through. Not really outlining, a little bit right on the edge over there. And this was pretty much how I would deal with that part of the eye. And then I'd start working out from the outside. Now, one of the things I'm going to stress to you is do not, I repeat, do not do your eyelashes yet. We will get them in there. They will be one of the last things that we do. We don't even need to plot them out right now. It's better off that we don't. But what we do want to do is we want to kind of pick up where we have a little bit of highlight and a little bit of brightness. So judging by whichever paper you're using, you want to look for areas that look like they get a little bit brighter. Let's go ahead and add a little bit of white to it. But just like in my picture, the really important part of this, the art part about this, is really trying to get that soft faded touch. That like when this kind of goes up into the eyebrow area, the orbital bone area, see my mark making kind of really just fades out. And I'm going to work on that as well down here too. Trying to pick up a little bit of the brightness that you see on the eye. I'll work a little quickly. I might get a little sloppy, but that's only because I'm trying to do this quicker for you for the demo part. But even though I am working quickly and even a little bit sloppy, can you see how the coverage that I'm getting with the white, how it's even, that it isn't that streaky, that we still have that soft, even coverage? And again, as we work our way out, we're trying to fade in and fade out. Another thing, you can see in my picture that the eyebrows themselves are really, really, really light. I wouldn't draw them in at this juncture. If you have darker eyebrows in your picture, what I would tell you is that you could do them, or you could leave them sort of blank for the time being. And if you have very, very like light eyebrows that are dark, little dark hairs, but you can see a lot of the skin tone underneath it, you should try to make that area as if they aren't there at all. Just like the eyelashes, we'll add them at the end. But if they're very dark and very heavy brows, those are something that you might want to draw in and shade in a little bit with our darker tones. You can see through my picture here that I'm going to use the gray of the paper for a very large portion of it. So you can see this particular area, which is all basically neutral tone gray. I don't think I would add black to this. I think what I would do is I would just kind of keep that pretty much the tone of the paper. So use your best judgment, but when you get to sort of a middle in-between gray, a sort of neutral gray, that's the purpose of using the neutral colored paper. So that neutral color will sort of pick up and take care of that over there. And really what you want to do is you want to find the highlights and the brighter parts of the skin tone. In this case, up here above this brow it is for me. It is a little bit over here right underneath the eyebrow and going into the eye. I've got a little bit of lightness picking up in the eyelid. I'm picking up a little bit more on this side. Looking at this, I can probably make that a little darker with black. I'll go back to that in a second. I've got some brightness in here. A lot of brightness in this bottom corner. And a little bit of structure here with like the hint of the edge of the nose and everything else like that. I know that we're at that time. It's about 10 o'clock. I'm going to do just a little bit more and end this video for you. So for those of you who are working digitally, realize that that video has been up and posted. For those of you who are going to work on color pencil, this video will be posted very shortly. The last little bit that I would be doing is I'm going to add a little bit of darkness here for the crease. And I know that looks almost like a line, but try to keep any lines and outlines like that to the minimum and just really kind of look for like the value that you're going to find in there. My little bit of the lid is just right there, and I'm going to make sure that I don't overlap black and white right there. Don't think I need black up in here. I can always make things darker. I could use a little bit right in here, and that's why I left that gap. All right, and really that's going to be pretty much it. And that would be how I'd start my particular color pencil drawing of this eyeball. And again, just a little touch of an outline here, and that's it. All right, so if you're looking at you pressing down, if you're pressing down this hard somewhere, you're making a mistake. Keep your mark making light, the black, only in darkest areas. And then remember, we're using gray paper, so you can use the grayness of the paper as shading. Soft blended values, and we'll be going over with several layers of color and white again on this as we go.